Hi, welcome back to this special edition of Money, Money, Money. As India celebrates 75 years of independence, we at CNBC-TV18 are celebrating and promoting the idea of financial independence through a variety of shows. And today we want to talk about effective personal budgeting. Now, I know that all of us have grown up in homes and we have learned from our parents on how to budget correctly for various household expenses and, of course, over and above that as well, along with managing our investments. But there is a big difference in the way our parents did it and how we are doing it. Because, say even a little over 10 years ago, of course, incomes were limited to some extent, but there weren't that many avenues of expenditure. But now, especially in the last 5 years, there have been, as our exposure to everything global is increasing, and there are so many more avenues of expenditure, along with the penetration of credit cards, and also so many of these buy now, pay later schemes, coupled with the rise in our levels of aspirations. What is happening is that the personal budget, which is our household budgets, are going a little bit haywire. Personal debt levels are rising. So how do you actually combat all of this? How can you have an effective personal budget, which on the one hand can provide for all your requirements, and on the other hand doesn't greatly curtail your aspirations as well? So Harish Rao, who's an investment coach at Simple Equation, joins in to talk about just this. Harish, thanks very much for joining in to talk about this topic, which at least I feel is very, very important for especially the younger people today. So, one thing is, like I said, we've all grown up, watching our parents budget for different household needs, setting money aside for investing as well. But now that we are seeing so many more avenues of expenditure, right? I mean, credit card penetration is through the roof. Everyone is offering these buy now, pay later schemes. The Indian middle class has, very, very high aspirations now. So a lot of people are finding it tough to live within their means without taking on debt. So what does personal budgeting really mean in today's context? I mean, is it an outdated concept, or is it more relevant than ever today?
Hi, Sumera, and good evening. And I think it's a great topic for the 75th year of independence. I'm glad you're doing these shows. Going by what you just described, Sumera, there are a lot of conflicting things emerging from it. Very high incomes and very high aspirations colliding with very low savings and high borrowings. Going back to what you said, I think our parents are our best role models for life values, especially on things concerning consumption, budgeting, and prioritization. If someone has parents who are extremely emotionally balanced and disciplined, they are indeed very, very fortunate. See, unlike, say, the natural world where, an animal looks at its parents and for sake of survival quickly adapts to whatever the parent is doing, it's a slow burn for the humans. Okay, we observe our parents over many years through many situations and then learn life lessons. So parents have to be extremely conscious on what life lessons they are actually giving to their children. Okay, they are actually the number one role models. And you were talking about, say, credit cards and, the need for borrowing more. I think credit cards are not meant for those who need credit. Okay. Credit cards are really meant for people who want the rewards and the benefits that come from these credit cards. So most smart consumers I know use credit cards for, extra benefits like the rewards, like lounge access, like, the offers that the credit cards give them. And please don't ever, take the actual credit and, roll over the credit from a credit card. It's just too expensive. There is simply no investment in India that can match the rate of return that a credit card actually charges you.
That's true. Actually, this revolving credit is a very, very dangerous concept. And the sooner people learn how it actually works, the easier it'll be for them. But, Harish, I mean, budgeting normally, at least in our household, has been pretty ad hoc. This is what we need, this is how it works, let's just divide it. And, maybe on a monthly, bi-monthly basis, it sort of changes, right? But, like how we do investments, right? There's a philosophy attached to it. So like investing, does budgeting also need a philosophy?
Yeah, if you have a philosophy to budgeting, I mean, if it is there as part of your work ethic, your lifestyle, then you really are blessed. Okay, in an emerging India in which, salaries are extremely attractive, if someone can combine this, high salary and high net worth with extremely good budgeting and some good emotional qualities like delayed gratification, then they are absolutely on the path to extremely good financial freedom. High salaries, high savings, good investment policy, and tight budgeting, I think will result in very high chance of financial freedom at a very early age. Those who embark on this, at the beginning of their career will really appreciate it, say, when they are 35, 40, 45 years old. And they find that, their ability to delay gratification, to, curtail consumption, to live by, a certain set of guidelines and rules will really help them a lot. So the philosophy is really, you actually spend much, much less than what you earn. You have a sound investment philosophy. If you go through a financial planner, the financial planner will expect, you to adhere to a financial planning statement. He will expect you to have certain goals on savings, certain goals on investments, and on either a yearly review or a half-yearly review, any shortfall or any deviation from such plans will be highlighted. So if you think that you don't have a budgeting philosophy, please do implement a financial plan. When you go through a financial planner or an investment advisor, the process itself will, sort of demand that you have a budgeting philosophy.
Okay, that's true. Actually, in fact, this teaching our children the concept of delayed gratification, I think, is one of the greatest gifts that we can give them. But let's get to the practical aspects. Harish, what are the constituents, or rather, what should be the constituents of a personal household budget, and how would a person get started?
Yeah, I think if you divide it into 4 or 5 buckets, so one would be the essentials like food and groceries. The other would be rent. Rent would possibly be one of the biggest constituents of a budget if you're in a rented house in a metro city. And then you would have children's education, and then you would have utilities and stuff like that. Then you would have probably personal transportation and stuff like that. And lastly, all the discretionary items. So discretionary would be your entertainment, your holidaying, your restaurants, and your clothes, etc., would be discretionary. So obviously the discretionary part is the least important of the budget, of the household budget. But the first part is a priority. I mean, the other 4 or 5 things which I had highlighted is a priority. You can't skimp on, food, on children's education, on the rent, on utilities, etc. So the discretionary part is where you possibly, do the final management to, manage your budget.
Yeah, I know, in theory, discretionary comes last, but I think it occupies the most mind space for all of us, and which is why it becomes essential, like you said, to create that priority list. So how do you, budget for this priority list, and what is ideally, I mean, how much buffer should be there besides, the money which has gone into all of these pockets?
Sumaira, more the buffer, the better, okay? We have seen in the last 2 years how we are living in an extremely volatile and uncertain world. More the buffer, the better. In terms of, if you want me to give a number on savings, it should be a minimum of 20%. Though many of my friends in their discussions, many of the investment advisors I meet say that, Indians can save as much as, say, 50%. In a double income, high earning household, there could be 50%, 60% savings also. It may sound absurd, but I know of champions who have actually done this. Coming back to your issue of consumption vis-a-vis savings, I mean, you just have to go through media. There are more advertisements for consumption than advertisements for savings or investments, okay? And coupled with social media and the Instagram generation, it is actually quite tough for a millennial to be, quite ascetic in his thinking or in her thinking that, she could delay gratification forever and then, adopt a very, very moderate lifestyle when most of her peers or many of the people in her peer group are, spending well and, living well and, having this YOLO philosophy. So if you're going to have the YOLO philosophy, then my best wishes.
Well said, Harish. Okay, we're going to take a very quick break, but we're going to continue this chat on effective personal budgeting. More tips and hacks lined up. Hi, welcome back. You're watching Money, Money, Money. With us is Harish Rao, who's an investment coach at Simple Equation. And today we're talking about effective personal budgeting. So we've spoken a bit about, what constitutes a personal budget and how do you sort of get started. But, Harish, how do you account for something like, a variable income or variable expenses? Because, a lot more people now are in freelance work today, so they may, of course, find it tough to get loans because they don't have that consistent salary statements, etc. As well, they can have sudden expenses. So how can their budget reflect these sort of realities?
This is such a terrific question, Sumera. This is such a good question. See, there is a golden rule in this. If your human capital is uncertain, then your financial capital or investment capital better be certain. If your human capital is very certain, then your financial capital can be uncertain or you can take more risk. So, for example, if you are a tenured professor in a government college, okay, that means your human capital or your visibility of earnings is very, very certain. Okay, so definitely then you can take more risk with your financial capital. But if your human capital is uncertain or has got a very, very short shelf life, then you got to make your financial capital all that more solid or all that more predictable. Okay, that having been said, there are many people in, who are self-employed or in the gig economy who are earning very, very well. So for such people with great one-off paydays or with windfall sort of earnings, they can take some risk provided they have, made their, their budgets very, very certain or their goal planning very, very certain. Okay. In case you think that your earnings are too volatile or too unpredictable, then you better start having a contingency fund, which is very, very important. Okay. In fact, most planners insist that the contingency fund is the number one step to financial planning. Okay. The contingency fund could be something like 12 months of living expenses. That's very, very important. Just having a contingency fund would enable you to, take those slightly, bigger risks in life that, give you that freedom or give you that, the joy in living. Just knowing that you have a contingency fund to cover for any expense. So that is very, very important. So again, I would hugely recommend that people who are on a variable income or who have extremely volatile income fluctuations, they meet a financial planner. They need to have a fix on their goal value. They need to really know the importance of cash flows, etc., and then they can take it forward.
So Harish, it's not enough just to have a budget, right? I mean, it's a moving target. So how and when should a budget be reviewed?
Yeah, I think a budget should be reviewed whenever there is a change in life circumstances. Like, for example, if one of the spouse changes his or her job or, starts a new business, that's, one example. Or if there is a new addition to the family, that's another example. Or you might have got a windfall. You might have got, inherited a lot of money from one of your parents. Now, so in all these cases, your liabilities cease to exist. That means you have paid the final EMI on your house. So in each of these cases, you can definitely, review and, recalibrate your budget. There was one very, very good piece of advice that someone gave me regarding budgeting. A really good way of keeping a budget is to have two separate bank accounts. One bank account is for your consumption and your expenses, and the other bank account is for your investments. Okay. under no circumstances can your investment bank accounts ever be used for consumption or expenses. So this by itself, ring fences, both the accounts, the investment account as well as the consumption or expense account. So that part of the philosophy should be non-negotiable, Sumera. That's I think is a great idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's a question that even I've been asking, that some very, very important goals likewise should have their own portfolio, so that that temptation to sort of dip in is just, magically removed, so to say. But Harish, you shared an absolutely fantastic piece of advice. So let me lean in on your experience a little bit more. Any other practical budgeting tips that you can talk about?
I read this book called Your Money or Your Life by a couple called Vicky Robin and Joe Dominguez. Now, this was a book that reached the New York Times bestseller list. And this book became extremely popular after the 2008 global financial crisis. This book has got, a very alluring chapter called 100 Ways to Save Money. And any guess on what's the number one way to save money? The authors say the number one method to save money is stop trying to impress others. Okay. The moment we stop trying to impress others, we will get, a separate wind in our wings, to embrace budgeting, to, look at frugality as something that's very, very essential and, which will contribute to our long-term fulfillment and freedom. So I think that's a good thing to, take out at the end of this program, Sumera. Let's stop trying to impress others. Our money is for our consumption and our, life goals and our life values. The moment we try to impress others, then, we don't set the agenda and other people's reaction to our, purchases move the needle, which should not be the case.
No, absolutely. And, I'm all for normalizing living within our means. And I really wish that more people would, listen to this advice. And by the way, related to this, I read a very, very interesting piece on stealth wealth. So, this is a rising concept in the US, where the rich don't want to flaunt their wealth. Of course, there's an IRS angle to it, and, they don't want to get into the IRS. But I thought it was fantastic. I mean, stealth wealth, it's for a safety net for you, and really, like you said, not a tool to impress others. But any specific apps or some, a software that you would recommend for budgeting, or, would a simple Excel spreadsheet do?
If you need an app to do budgeting, you are already in trouble. It's your, diagnostic that, you are in trouble if you need an app for budgeting. Budgeting should be in your DNA. It should be in your, life ethic. But jokes apart, I think a simple Excel sheet will do. I have actually seen many of my friends show me their Excel sheets, and I've been very impressed with the way they have, saved money for their retirement, and they are very, very wealthy because of their personal budget. Okay, so and all of them use an Excel sheet and their own planners. So which I think shows that if you can combine very simple tools like an Excel sheet with strong commitment to saving and long-term investment, you're on the ticket to good financial freedom.
Yeah, absolutely, Harish. You said it well. All that's required is a commitment on our part to really do the right thing. Thanks very much, Harish, for joining in. So, there you heard it, all about effective personal budgeting and why you need it. I mean, it seems that with time, a lot of us are ignoring, the math on our personal budget, but it's really something that you can, occupy a few weekends with. And trust me, in the long run, it will really, really help you. Thank you very much for watching this special edition of Money, Money, Money. We'll see you again next week.